Okay, so not long ago, I did this video talking about designer fragrances that a lot of you already know and love and suggesting niche alternatives. Unfortunately, that video did not do as well as I might hope, but I get it. A lot of you guys are kind of put off by niche, primarily because of the price. I totally get it. And I know for a lot of you, there's nothing I can say to convince you to at least sample and decant.
But you should sample and you should get decants. It's worth it. It'll change your life. Trust me.
So today we're taking the opposite approach, and I'm going out on a limb here and kind of being a little bit vulnerable in a way. I'm almost dismantling myself, but it's not that serious. I've chosen 5 of my absolute favorite niche fragrances in my collection. These are 5 that I talk about all the time. They're 5 that I suggest and recommend all the time. And I feel weird for saying, instead of them, try these. I'm not really saying that. I still recommend you check out these niche fragrances because they're my favorites for a reason. But if you're looking for a similar vibe to some of these niche fragrances, I've paired them up with some designers that are not intended to smell exactly like them, but again, similar vibe, maybe the same function, so they can work in the same way, and as per designer fragrances, they're gonna cost less. So let's dive right into it. Now, our first pair up is a little bit of a cheater pair because the fragrance I'm gonna be recommending in lieu of the niche fragrance is technically intended to be a bit of a clone, although it is decidedly more of a twist on the original. So we're talking about Latent Exclusive from Parfum de Marly, which is my favorite fragrance from the house that I've smelled so far. Already takes the original Latent, which is phenomenal. That sweet, spicy, aromatic, fresh, but warm and kind of sexy fragrance profile, and makes it darker, adds some coffee, adds some edge to it, some rougher elements, some more warmth, makes it a little bit more grown up, a little bit less playful, a little bit more refined, but still quite sweet, quite powerful, quite alluring. A fragrance I would suggest if you want this vibe, you're gonna get pretty dang close with Niche for All Vanilla Oud. And again, this is intended to be a interpretation of Latent Exclusive. This is from a Swedish brand. And again, they are going more along the clone route. I can't say this is one-to-one because it's not intended to be, but it comes really close. It's basically the same vibe. And the ingredients here are some of the highest you can get. This is not like your typical clone where you pay like 30 bucks and you get the same vibe, but it's flat and it's synthetic. No, high quality ingredients, you're gonna pay for it. So maybe around the $50, $60 mark for this bottle, but they do have a great little deal where you buy 3 and you only pay for 2, which is cool. But if you're looking for the Latent Exclusive vibe, this is one of the best I've experienced. I know there's some others from other brands. I haven't tried them, but in terms of quality, this is the way to go. And I like that it is a little bit of a twist, and they tried not to make it exactly like Latent Exclusive. They maybe have bumped up the vanilla in here, and it's not quite as edgy as this can be, but still just as robust. Easily can recommend Vanilla Oud from Niche for All. Technically not a designer brand, but again, it was a cheater pick. Now we're gonna move into some bona fide designer brands. One of my favorite fragrances from the House of Amouage that wasn't always my favorite has to be Bracken Man. This is a very mature smelling fragrance. This is kind of in that fougere realm where it is spicy, it's aromatic, it's woody and mossy. There's kind of a sweet, almost creamy cleanliness to it. It smells very gentlemanly, very refined, but again, a little bit mature. And it's very, very spicy with cloves. You gotta love cloves. I've grown to love cloves. It's a very dry and arid, kind of intense spice that really complements this fragrance profile very well, gives it a lot of focus. But it can be a little much for people, but even if you do like it, it's not cheap. So if you want something that's gonna be in this realm, again, doesn't smell the same, but will definitely serve the same function and kind of has the same presence, honestly, is Pasha de Cartier, the original Eau de Toilette from 1992. An exceptional fragrance. The quality is so smooth. It's mind-boggling. And also, it performs very well. Like I said, it is robust, it has presence. You're gonna get a good 8+ hours out of this thing. Again, it does carry that similar kind of mature vibe. It does not smell like a young man's scent. It smells like, 30 and up. You're trying to dress more smartly, more professionally, you want people to take you seriously, this is the kind of scent you might wear. And again, similar vibe, maybe not quite as heavy on cloves. It does have a similar structure, but it has some different elements in there that fill in the structure and make it smell a little different. But it is ultimately a fougere, and it could serve as a pretty decent substitute to Bracken, man. So maybe one to check out. I talk about Cartier all the time. They're one of my favorite designer houses, period. You really get more than what you pay for, especially with discount prices. So I'm gonna have links down below. Check out Pasha Cartier. Okay, one of my most beloved oud fragrances in my collection, perhaps a little bit more of an accessible oud if you do like oud or if you're open to it. This one is pretty easy to wrap your nose around, but completely exquisite, absolutely captivating. The quality is out of this world. Chris Collins Oud Galore. Again, I've talked about it so much. It is technically an oud rose fragrance, which is nothing new, but highest quality stuff. Such a smooth, buttery profile. Lots of orris in here, which kind of brings that creamy butteriness that makes it hang in the air with an oomph, with a thickness, but not something that overwhelms. Also, you have a bit of cinnamon in here, so there is a nice little bit of spice. This stuff is an extrait de parfum, so it's gonna stick around on the skin all day, all night, but again, without overwhelming. Incredible fragrance, but again, not cheap. One that I would recommend that is easily the cheapest fragrance on this list in this video. You can get this in the $20 range, maybe low 20s. This is gonna be Oud Touch from Franck Olivier. Now, if I understand correctly, technically Franck Olivier is not a designer brand. All they make is fragrances, if we're going off of that technical definition that many of you tried to shove down my throats in some previous videos, but again, I'm not invalidating it. Just trying to nuance it. This is technically a niche fragrance. Even though you can get it discounted so cheaply, it's a weird little loophole. But you really do get niche quality here. This is a little bit more of an aggressive oud than Oud Galore, but not in terms of quality, mainly just in terms of the personality. It's darker, it's woodier, it's a little bit smokier, and it has a touch of a funk to it. It's a little animalic, but in a very elegant way. There is a bit of a softness in here and a little bit of a sweetness. It's not quite as sweet as Oud Galore, but it is in that oud rose territory, which brings a very particular type of refinement that only certain people are gonna find comfortable. But if you do, it will really accentuate your presence. And again, 20-something dollars for the quality that this is. Incredible stuff. I don't need to say anymore. Check out Oud Touch if you are interested in real smelling oud. I'm not saying it's real oud in here, I don't know, but it smells like it. All right, I feel weird recommending an alternative to this, and I'll feel even weirder on the next one, but my alternatives are solid, I gotta say. Penhaligon's Halfeti Cedar, one of my absolute favorites in my collection, without a doubt. Easily, such a distinctive and such a provocative profile. It is kind of this pruny, fruity sweetness. So you get dried fruits in here with a lot of rum, so it's quite boozy, mixed with some spices, mixed with a lot of dry, woody cedar wood. It is dense, it's a very dense profile. It's quite a bit much to smell up close, but it's beautiful to me. And it's something that has presence, it lasts on the skin, it sits very well in the air around you, and it just has a vibe to it. Now, this fragrance is a little bit of a stretch, I believe, but there's some constituents here that are overlapping, and the vibe is similar. It's not the same, but the presence, the robustness, the oomph is here. From Tom Ford, this is Black Orchid Parfum. Admittedly, I prefer the original Black Orchid, but in terms of matching this vibe, this is in the ballpark. This is perhaps a little bit sweeter, a little bit more floral. I get the color pink when I smell this. Not like cotton candy, but like a rich, loud pink. But there's a darkness here. You have truffle in here, which makes it kind of earthy, which does give you the same vibe as the woodiness in here. There's a lot of rum in here as well, so it's quite boozy. And you have this kind of almost chocolatey sweetness. Not really the same kind of dried fruity quality, but ultimately, if you don't dig too deep into them, the vibes can be very similar. There's something a little bit, again, more provocative, maybe a little bit more unusual about this fragrance, but I do think it can serve as a decent substitute. May not be the cheapest, but but it is worth a sample. If you haven't tried it yet, check it out. That's Tom Ford Black Orchid Parfum. And finally, one of my most recommended fragrances on this channel has been ever since I smelled it years ago. I think it's a stunning fragrance. I think it's a standout. A lot of people say it smells similar to a particular designer fragrance. I'll get to that in a second. This is Raja Parfum's Oligarch. This is hard to find at the moment. Raja has pulled it from his website for obvious reasons. It might come back later, I'm sure, but for now it's kind of tough to find. So I really found it a little bit easier to recommend some alternatives, but this is such a statement maker of a fragrance, but one that's easy to wear. You can wear it for any occasion. You can wear it all year round. It functions great in the warm weather because it is fresh. It is kind of fruity and citrusy. It's kind of herbaceous and woody. There's a little bit of a sweetness here, and it's quite spicy as well. I think there may be a lot of juniper berry, perhaps. There's something sharp about it, but it is mouth-watering. The way it comes together is so refined, so well put together. A lot of people say this smells like Terre d'Hermès. I see what they mean, the woodiness, the spice, but this is sweeter than Terre d'Hermès. There's a fruitiness in here that I don't get out of Terre d'Hermès. Now, I did not choose Terre d'Hermès as my alternative. I could have, but instead I chose this one. Again, doesn't smell the same, might smell less like Oligarch than the Hermès, but this is Cartier once again. This is Déclaration, the original from I think maybe 96 or 98. This is a similar vibe. There's something gentlemanly about it. There's something refined about it, a little bit mature. This is bitter orange, it's cardamom, it's leather. There's something very bitter about it for sure because of that orange, but it is bright, it's fresh, it's spicy. It's woody. It's such a well-crafted fragrance that I cannot believe it comes in a designer bottle. Honestly, that goes for just about every Cartier I've tried, especially the classics. Incredible stuff. Again, could serve the same function, and you can find it for a pretty decent price. I'm pretty sure it's under 60 bucks, under 50 bucks perhaps, maybe depending on where you get it and how big the bottle. But totally worth it, regardless of whether it's an alternative to this or not. Totally worth having in your collection. It's timeless. It smells like it could have come out, honestly, in the past few years, rather than being almost 30 years old. I'm recommending it as an alternative. If you haven't tried it yet, check out the original. The whole line is great, but check out Déclaration. All right, it's your turn. I want to know, have you tried any of these fragrances? I'm sure you have, maybe at least one or two. Let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.